ones, our relationship with the materials we surround ourselves with will change. How we view and design products, not as static objects, but as dynamic and evolving systems, is key to this more sustainable future. Respect and care for the materials themselves, coupled with an appreciation of their inherent value, leads us to create new narratives and perspectives. Can we design not only for the new product that is destined to disappoint once its shiny shell has faded and worn, but for all the stages of its life journey, birth, growth, death, decay, ultimately guiding it to rebirth once more? Design has the power to harness these multiple approaches and find ever more creative ways to retell the story of materials and prepare them for their very own afterlife. Thank you. Not sure if there are questions or not. Or
we have no time,
no time?
Unfortunately,
That's
but
fine.
please stick around so that the students or whoever would like to ask you questions can maybe grab you in the hallway and take you to the hallway.
Thank you.
Yes. No, don't grab her in the hallway. I'm so sorry about that. So we have one last panel followed by a conversation about certification. And in between, we're going to have a short video about biodegradable microfibers. So please stay tuned. Without further ado, I would like to invite, this is a large panel and the conversation is huge. We're going to be talking about sustainability, or rather circularity at scale. So circularity, a bit what we just heard from Dr. Kate Goldsworthy, but at scale. So Adriana Galijasevic and Andrea Venier, Dio Kurosawa of the Bear Scouts, Tamara Swartz of Cradle to Cradle, Adriana Galijasevic from G-Star, I'm so sorry everyone, Andrea Venier from Recicrom, and Pinar Demirel from Chalik Denim, and Giussi Betoni from Class Eco Hub. Please help me welcome them. Thank you so much. I need to invest in a host, you know? Like I can't do it all.
Yeah.
Nothing. Hello? You hear me? Yeah? Awesome. Thank you guys for coming out today. It's been interesting so far, no? Yeah? Woo! By show of hands, how many people are here representing a brand? And how many creators do we have out there? Beautiful. So this discussion should be really interesting for you because for me at the Bear Scouts, if you know anything about us, we are very interested in disrupting the supply chain. And in order to do that, we really believe that it's important that consumers change their ways of purchasing and are a bit more conscious. But we strongly believe that consumers are probably going to continue doing what they do best, which is buy shit they don't need. And we want to be sure that the supply chain is equipped to handle that. So we are really strongly positioned to ensure that whatever is created in a way that is responsible. And that means that you can go and continue to make things that we don't need. You can continue to produce things that we don't need, and it doesn't have a negative impact on the environment. That's our goal. And I'm very happy that a lot of these folks here are my friends and business partners and synergy partners. And we're very excited to get into a discussion about how we can move from the circularity debate to actual action. And all these folks are actually doing something to make that a possibility right now. With that said, yes, you've been introduced to them. We'll start the conversation off with Tamara and the Cradle to Cradle business. Just a question. What are the typical challenges relating to the certifications of Cradle to Cradle when you receive them?
Well, as you may or may not know, the Cradle to Cradle standard is based upon 5 attributes. So we look at 5 aspects. Those are being assessed and verified before we issue a certification.
Okay.
The first one is material health. Then there's material reutilization, water stewardship, renewable energy, and social fairness. So this already in itself is very rigorous.
Right.
Because other certification standards look at maybe one or two of these.
Right.
We look at all 5.
Okay.
And then of these 5, for sure material health is the most challenging. A manufacturer needs to provide a bill of materials that lists all of the ingredients and the chemicals that go into a product down to 0.01%.
Okay.
Yes,
Very little margin of error.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then each and every one needs to be is being rated against 24 endpoints. And you can imagine that requires a lot of commitment of the team that's working on that, but also a very strong collaboration with the suppliers, because they are the ones that need to provide all this information.
Correct. Awesome. Does anyone have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I do.
Please.
Material health, actually. If you say you have 34 chemicals, if 33 are perfect, but one is undisclosed, the whole certification falls down. So just the rigor is super high.
Yeah.
And it requires unparalleled levels of transparency all the way deep to the molecules of the chemistry. So it's super rigorous.
Yes.
And do you think that the industry itself understands, I mean, from makers and brands trying to get a certification, do you think they really understand cradle to cradle?
I think, yes, the industry understands the principles, the basic idea of cradle to cradle. And we see a growing number of brands and manufacturers certifying their products and materials, but we want more of them, of course, to really go by the principles and certify their materials. As, for instance, G-Star has done with our gold level certified denim fabric in partnership with Artistic Milliners.
Right.
But I'd like to also call out CNA that has certified t-shirts and denim jeans.
Okay.
Woolford that has certified a whole line of luxury products. So yeah, I would just encourage everybody to look into that and understand the principles of cradle to cradle.
And from cradle to cradle gold certification, which is what the Artistic Milliners endeavor was about, how many do you actually receive, or let's say applications you receive that are looking to get a gold certification? Just so everyone understands that the difference between a regular certification and the extra gold, maybe you can give us a bit of background and
Yes.
maybe some numbers or an idea, an indication of how many of those gold certifications you actually hand out.
Sure. So the cradle to cradle certification can be issued at 5 levels, starting at basic, then bronze, silver, gold, and platinum.
Okay.
So platinum is the ultimate one can achieve. We at the Institute believe that the gold and the platinum level say that a material or a product is really primed for circular economy. However, and that I think personally is also the beauty of the standard, that besides these 5 attributes, we have these 5 levels, and it's a path of improvement. So we encourage everybody to start, even if you don't reach gold right away, but start and choose progress over perfection.
Okay.
And every 2 years, you need to recertify and show a good effort towards optimizing and progressing. And currently, about 65% of the fashion certifications are at gold.
Okay, and the gold actually, I mean, maybe you can give us an indication of, it's open source is also one of the attributes of a gold certification, correct? Or
Well, some brands, which I applaud, like for instance G-Star
G-Star,
and
yeah.
CNA,
Right.
that, and I think this was mentioned also by Mara, that we're really in a sharing community. And it's not so that brands do all of this innovative work and then keep all the knowledge to themselves.
Right.
So there's, for instance, and I encourage you to have a look and download the 2 how-to guides by CNA that explain the challenges they faced so that others can learn from them and don't have to make the same mistakes.
Right.
Right. And the denim that G-Star and Artistic Milliners developed together is available for the whole industry.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. That being said, is there a sort of initiative that's maybe coming down the pipe that will maybe require all to be open source? Because for us, we really don't like competition. We really like to believe that whatever new development is coming out of one camp could be shared with another camp, because obviously that's going to be the best way to deal with this whole issue with climate change, right? Is that something that you feel that could be a requirement over some time?
Maybe over some time, yes, and
Okay.
we have a new version in development of the standard, version 4.0, that
Okay.
will be launched next year.
Okay.
And we know that this is an issue.
Okay.
And when you spoke of competition just before, I know this is also a question of competition in the supply chain.
Absolutely.
However, it's not an aggressive competition like when we're speaking about prices, for instance.
Right.
But it's a friendly competition
Okay.
about positive impact.
Okay.
And as a beautiful example, I find is that, so G-Star was the first one to launch a gold certified denim fabric. And then a few months later, CNA launched their gold level denim jeans.
Right.
G-Star sends them a cake to congratulate
Oh, that's
them.
beautiful.
And this is how it works. Yes.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, oh, I mean, because we're talking about G-Star, let's just, go to Adriana. I mean, what was your experience? I mean, we'll get to some questions later, but what was your experience going through the process of obtaining, this certification? And were you always kind of looking to keep it open source as far as trying to obtain gold? Was that in the
Yes.
back of your mind?
Well, it was because there is a positive materials library on the website of Cradle to Cradle. So you can actually display what's certified and then you can ask open questions. So for us it was important because we worked with Dye-Star Artistic Milliners and in creating this fabric and creating this indigo solution that eliminates the hydrosulfates from the picture. It was important to share also with other mills. Not only one mill should have this hydrosulfate-free indigo technology, everybody
Beautiful.
should have it.
Yeah, yeah.
So for us, that was important. Yeah, it was important because we as one brand, we cannot change everything.
No.
We need everybody to be on board, and these are pre-competitive materials.
Yes.
In denim is denim. We can
Yeah.
do it in constructions and silhouettes and
Yeah.
all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But the raw material, that we shouldn't compete on that. We should collaborate to improve those parts.
Okay. Well, let's back up a little bit and discuss, G-Star has always kind of been synonymous with, the raw movement and, starting off from a very responsible perspective. How does that get you to where you are right now as a brand?
Well,
It's a heavy question.
yeah.
Do your best.
In terms of sustainability, you mean?
Of course.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think, just like everything else in the world,
Yeah.
it all started small.
Right.
It was 10 years ago that we introduced a capsule called the Raw Sustainable line.
Right.
And
10 years.
10 years
Okay.
ago. Yeah. And it was consisting of 3 parts. One was the raw organic, raw
Okay.
recycled, and raw nettle.
Okay.
So we learned a lot from these little capsules that we've been working on, and we ran them for 2 years, 2 times a year. And then in 2012, we said, what if we take all of our learnings from these capsules and apply them to our best sellers? What would happen? And we noticed that if we did that, and which we did, our impact was tenfold in terms of use of sustainable fibers. So we went from having a 1% in our collection to 10% within 1 year. So that was in 2012, and it was the same year where we actually published publicly where we are in terms of our sustainable fibers, as well as where we are in terms of our manufacturing, like supply chain,
Yeah.
and what we want to do. That was with Made By. That was the first public scorecard. And then that kind of opened the doors to moving in that direction even further. So having the publicly displaying where we are, we also set the goals. Let's say by 2020, we want to be 100% sustainable on our cotton because cotton represents 80% of our business. So it was important to have that wider impact. Then from there, we have also around the same time, 2013, of course, we signed a detox commitment for zero discharge of hazardous chemicals in our supply chain. In 2014, then we published our manufacturing map and actually linked it to our web shop, which means that we were the first denim brand to actually, if you look at the product that you like, if you click on it, there's this little icon called Where Is Made?
Right.
Where is it made? And then you can find for each style that you're interested in, where exactly it's made, like what kind of a relationship we have with this factory, the exact address, the population that is there. And then since then, that idea of having transparency has always been important to us. And we have moved, of course, designing the transparency pledge, as well as doing the mode tracker. It was also started by Made By, where we would report annually on our website publicly where we are in terms of our sustainable progress.
And others weren't doing this. It's essentially
No, we were the
you're
first
leading-
ones to pilot
Okay.
it, but then others joined on it.
Okay.
But unfortunately, Made By has closed down.
Right.
But for us to even scale and accelerate this idea of transparency, we now are working with the SAC
Right.
for the Higg Index, because that can help us align across the board with other brands, as well as our manufacturing systems.
Right.
So that one part is in terms of transparency. And in terms of product, what we have learned from our raw sustainable capsules
Yeah, yeah.
back 10 years ago is that what we do is we introduce sustainable innovation into the collection as a capsule. Then we educate our customers about it,
Right.
as well as kind of set the new standards in the industry. By introducing these innovations and then silently integrate them into our rest of our collection. So one example would be, Raw for the Oceans.
Right.
We did in 2014, and we raised the awareness about plastics, and but then we said, okay, this inspired us to actually say that all of our polyesters by 2020 need to be 100% recycled.
Okay.
Then, of course, introduction of circular dyes such as Resichrome, as well as earth colors.
Right.
You introduce it in one capsule, but then integrate it into the rest of the collection.
Right.
Same with cradle-to-cradle fabrics. Introduction of one into our best-selling styles, and then dissemination into the entire collection, not only in one fabric, but creating other fabrics according to the same principles.
Okay.
So it's pretty much this.
Yeah.
You're doing three things. You're introducing something, see how it's really working, and with an intent to scale it, and trying to educate people about it. Why is it better? Why we are doing it,
Right.
and then putting it into our general collection, focusing on the best sellers, because that's where you can have the biggest impact.
So, based on that, as you heard, there's a lot of folks here who are representing brands or having their own brand. When you have to scale up, how are you essentially ensuring that your stakeholders are able to go along for that ride? Because you've mentioned a lot of things that are very interesting, and of course they're amazing accolades, but you're not really, we haven't really covered the pain points. Obviously these stakeholders are not prepared necessarily to just jump onto the bandwagon of what you're looking for. How do you ensure that scaling up gets you, and bringing those stakeholders along, gets you the results that you're looking for? Any insights that you can give any of these folks out here would be amazing.
Well, collaboration.
Okay.
Collaboration for G-Star has been
That's a great one.
always super important, because it brings innovation.
Yeah.
And for G-Star, innovation is at core of our DNA.
Okay.
So collaboration, and people that we collaborate with are from different disciplines. But I think what the key common thread between us and our collaborators are two things. One is that sustainability is an inherent part of our business.
Okay.
And the second one is that we want to be front runners in our realms, whatever we are doing.
Okay.
So by having this alignment in these core values, and by crossing the disciplines, as well by being devoted to sharing knowledge, that's our kind of recipe to scaling our innovations,
Okay.
or sustainable innovations. And then this kind of goes hand in hand with SDG number 17, which is all about collaboration and partnerships.
Right.
And which we saw today are absolutely
Key.
necessary
Yeah.
in order
Yeah.
to go further
Yeah.
and scale even more,
More.
and accelerate this movement for good.
Right. And relating to the SDGs, how do you actually turn those SDGs into concrete action? Heavy question.
Well, from design perspective, like we take on a holistic approach to design. So we don't only think about how our products look and feel, but also the impact that they have. So by designing in a way that you respect the people and the planet in a transparent manner,
Right.
you're by default aligned with the SDGs because
Right.
they're basically human values
Right,
in a
right,
way.
right. Oh,
So for us, it's just the right thing to do,
right.
and feels very natural. And it seems like these global goals are already company goals. So
Right. So it really, I mean, a lot of it basically weighs on the fact that your core is based on responsible fashion. So,
our core is based on innovation, and our core is just a product, but
Okay.
it's very important. It's also how is it made.
right.
So,
right. That's amazing.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's a recipe for great things if everyone could follow that same method.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, thinking about Officina 39, Andrea, I know you have some new innovations. You're the only brand present here, Andrea. Adriana, sorry.
No problem.
You're the only brand present, but I want to talk about, you know, the supply chain and how these folks out here can take advantage of some of the innovations that you guys have cooking up. I know you have something, it's called, maybe you can correct me, Recycrom? Is that how
Yes,
you pronounce
correct.
it?
The name
Can
is-
you tell us a little bit about that, and the folks out here, maybe they can get an understanding
Yes.
of how they can take advantage of it?
Recycrom is a technology that we developed and was a crazy idea at the beginning because we thought to transform the textile waste into coming from the cellulosic fibers, so mainly coming, for example, from the manufacturing unit, from the cutting unit, cotton, for example, the wastage coming from the t-shirts, and transform that wastage in a very small powder, fine powder, and use then that powder, so cellulosic powder, as a dye stuffs, so to replace the conventional synthetic dyes. Was a crazy idea. We worked for 18 months in the lab to try to find a way, and one day we discovered that was possible to do that, and we started to make promotion, and we found some brands, and really G-Star is the brand that in this moment is supporting more this project using this technology, and really we need a brand. This day was really interesting for me. When I was coming yesterday to London, I was thinking maybe will be one more conference like many conferences we are participating about sustainability, but really I found a very different approach today. Thanks a lot. And really what for me is important to say that we need, we are in the supply chain. For me, we are in this moment in a certain situation where really we can jump to the next level. We need the support like a brand like G-Star to go further.
And how are brands like, let's say, G-Star taking advantage of this type of technology?
Yeah, I think that firstly is something that adding value to the final products.
Right.
5, 6, 7 years ago, when we were talking with some brands about the recycling materials, the idea was that the recycling material was a second quality, no? Yeah. It's a poorest quality. Really, we strongly believe that this is one of the way, because we have to be also really open. There isn't any, as you told before during the afternoon, there isn't one only reply to this complex matter of sustainability. But brands, I think, nowadays have to think how to give right message to the final consumer, because really, final consumer doesn't know.
No, of course not.
And recycling is one of that for me. Why this idea became? We are a chemical company, and and chemical has been really stressed.
Yes, of course.
Pushed under stress test during the last 10 years. And this, for me, was good. In Europe, we had REACH, was very good for us because we had to check a lot of our chemicals in the range. But also, this, when you are under that type of situation, There are companies that are acting, others they are trying to find shortcut, no?
Okay.
Because under the stress is quite normal. Is I think a human reply to the stress. So at the time when we started this idea, that really I cannot say you the exactly, but I can remember that we were I was a little bit frustrating because a lot of our customers, brands mainly, started to ask us a lot about natural dyes.
Right.
And really, I'm still thinking natural dyes can be a solution if we are working for a small project in small scale, but cannot be a solution for a big scale.
Right.
And so, in my mind, starting the process and thinking that the only way is to reprocess something, to upcycling something that already we are using, and this how born Racegrown.
Okay, and I feel like Juicy, you're burning over there. Maybe it's
A little bit.
I know you a little bit familiar. What are the limitations? Are there limitations when it comes to what these folks could expect from a quality perspective? Because look, at the end of the day, no brand is going to jump in your direction if they're going to get a product that's less than the traditional way of creating something. Is it on par with traditional methods?
So we have to be very transparent and say what we can and what we cannot.
Okay.
For example, with
Please tell
Racegrown,
us what you cannot.
we cannot is very dark colors. It's not possible. So black, navy blue, dark brown are not possible. So these limits are not possible if you're using only 100% the recycled dye stuffs.
Okay.
Then maybe also a compromise to think to use 90% of Risochrome and adding 10% of synthetic dyes. I think is a good goal anyway to replace 90% of the conventional dyes with a recycled one.
Okay.
And nowadays, for the reason it's very important to cooperate for us in this stage. My personal dream will be really to create a circularity economy between us and the brand, what we are working with G-Star, and solve the other problem that we have in this moment, the other limitation that is in general, we can obtain a very good fastness.
Okay.
That is very important for the brands. The only one we are not able in this moment to control is the light fastness, because the light fastness is depending from the original dye stuffs used on the fabrics.
Right.
And in this moment, we are not able to track the wastage.
From that, yeah.
This will be the next step. For the reason it's very important to scale up, trying to grow and improve. As a new technology, we have to work a lot, we know, and going into production. And last year we went for the first time with 2 projects, one with G-Star. In the production really was the way to understand the technology is working, but also the limits. And during last months we are working hardly to solve the
Those
limits.
issues. And from a price point perspective, because obviously, there's not endless budgets out here. From traditional methods, are you on par or are you...
This is the most critical point.
Okay.
Because as all the new technology, before scaling up, the cost cannot be the best one.
Right.
So you have to find really brands that want to invest in this new technology.
But just to make one clear about it, because whenever we introduce new technology, we keep cost neutral for the customers. We don't charge more
For the reason we need-
because we invest.
That's why
We need for the reason we need brands that are investing. I know that.
Right.
Also from our side, we are investing because, of course, we are maybe, I'm not saying losing money because it's not a matter when you are starting some project like that, it's not only a matter of money, but what is important is to cooperate, and we know that is a mutual inversion. We are investing, both of us. This is very important. Without that, nowadays we had a lot of discussion, and for me, what is happening in the industry nowadays from the supply chain, thanks a lot of input received during last 10 years, chemicals company improved and developed new chemicals. Machinery improved and developed amazing machinery to dyeing, reducing 90% the water consumption. Nowadays, the matter is the cost, because I know very few brands that are thinking, okay, for the final consumer, the cost will be neutral, even if in the initial stage, the beginning stage, the cost for me will be more.
Okay.
It's a different approach, but really, we know very well, we have not, we talk about hypocrisy today, no? And we know very well, mostly of the brands are not able, or for many reasons, I don't want to say now, judge the reason, but to make that means that most of the time there is, in this moment, there are technologies available in the market, in the supply chain, not growing for the cost.
Right.
This is, and this, you know, is a loop, and
Yes.
it's very difficult to come out from the loop because I can offer better price if I can grow with the consumption, and means that it's sometimes it's just not a matter of earning money, because, for example, nowadays we can produce only 200 kilo per day, and it's a small amount. It's a
Yeah.
pilot line. Of course, the next step will be to produce 10 times more, at least. And I'm not saying that the cost will go down 10 times, but mostly of the fixed costs will go down drastically.
And you said that there are limitations. Are those limitations being tackled now through your innovations, or are you working on other things that could be quite interesting to the supply chain as well?
Sorry.
So you said that there are limitations. Those
Yeah.
limitations are based on colors, right?
Yeah.
Are there innovations that are that you're looking to offer that will speak to that
No,
issue?
of course,
or-
it's not only on the colors, also in the way to apply
Applying, okay.
the Resecrom. For example, I don't know if we can, we can say, but we are working
Please,
some
go
other
on,
way
Some other
to
applications
apply,
that
some
are
other
nice.
way to apply. And our big effort nowadays, for example, will be to try to use this technology like there is a nebulization system to Dyne, coming, for example, from Core, from Tonello, or eFlow from Genealogia, and trying to use this powder in that machinery. This will be our next dream, we can
Okay.
say.
So you're working on that.
We are working on that.
And the cost?
The cost, really, we do the projection of the cost, and when we'll be able, and hope to be soon, to jump to the next level of production, really the cost will go drastically down, and we can compare, we will be able to compare to the actual cost, for example, for a pigment dye.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a very tough question. I know you mentioned that G-Star absorbs the cost when it comes to the fact that it's a bit over the normal price. Is there ever an opportunity for Officina 39 to do it itself, to absorb the cost?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Oh, of course,
Do you do this?
yes, partially we do it.
You partially do it. I think that's commendable, because obviously not every brand has the opportunity to absorb such costs. But leading by example and offering such an amazing product and absorbing some of the shock to the final brand could also, spread the word a bit more easily. No?
You are able to make effort when you can understand that there is a mutual effort. Means
Right.
that both of the parties are working really to launch in the market something
Together.
genuine, different, and one crazy idea like Resecrom can born only if you have passion, if you love, and for me, what is missing now in our industry is I think that love is a very simple
passion,
word,
maybe.
but passion and love, because we discussed already about that, but for me, one of the big problems is that I think mostly of us here, I personally also to me, we didn't desire to wear something for a very long time.
Yeah, yeah.
20 years back was completely different.
Yeah.
You were thinking for
Long periods. Yeah.
many months,
Yeah.
maybe just to buy a pair of shoes or that special denim or
Right.
jacket or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So, really, I think that is something that is very complex to solve, because we have to change completely the model, the system, from a system born maybe 10 years ago,
Yeah.
based on how much it costs, and we have to come back to a simple word that is value,
Okay.
which is the value. This for me, but it's a very complex.
I mean, I think that's still commendable that you're able to, you know, stomach some of the costs and still put the product out there, because we need the products. We need those other alternatives to the traditional methods. Juicy, I will now come to you and pick on you a bit, because you're my favorite.
Thank you.
You're my let me finish. You're my favorite, well, let's say, fabric specialist when it comes to the recyclability of things. Can you give us an indication of what class is working on and you know, what you're doing from a class perspective?
With pleasure, with my voice that is not at the best. I talk too much
Music
as
in my
Italian,
ears.
you know. I have a lot of passion and a lot of love for this argument.
Beautiful.
Yes, you know, class has become, thank you, you're really sweet.
From your mouth to
Yes,
Colin's
it comes
ears.
immediately. You know, class has become a reference point for, especially for one thing, to integrate responsibility into a fashion collection, fashion, activewear, everything that is apparel, you know. And I'm really, for me, really important to say that, because we are not doing sustainable things, we are integrating. This means that the design, the innovation, that are fundamental for the success, commercial success, because we need to talk about the commercial success of
Yeah,
these
of
things.
course.
Because if it's not successful, we're not going to change anything, you know? So if just little people, you know, little part of the people will access it, what's the point? So for us, you know, the integration is really important. And the integration means that we have completely changed the way to look at the product, because one thing is to say it's beautiful and innovative, but when you have beautiful, innovative, and responsible, this means that your technology is up there.
Yes, yeah.
When we started 12 years ago, I was really proud to have 6, 7 fabrics. Believe me, it was like that. And I was proud because they were very quite close to the conventional, you know, technology.
Right. How many years ago?
You know, 12.
12 years
12.
ago. Quite
So,
close to conventional.
quite close
Okay.
conventional.
Okay, I see
And
you.
I was very proud because everybody that was looking at them,
Yeah.
I was calling the wow effect.
Okay.
When they saw it, they would say, wow, it's really great. Why they were saying it? Because generally speaking, they were thinking that sustainable, meaning bad looking,
Yes.
not performing, and very expensive. That
Grenoble.
was the panorama.
Yeah.
It's still there sometimes. It's
yeah.
not so.
Yeah.
And that sustainable fashion was not stylish. You know, for someone that is doing fashion, that's not really a very good, you know, starting point. So we started from there, and now after 12 years, just to make very short, you know, we are far ahead of the conventional technologies. You know, we talk about smart innovation. What does it mean? Is an innovation that is also responsible. Because without innovation, we cannot deliver what the contemporary consumer wants. And we need, because, you know, nobody wants to go back. Nobody wants to make sacrifice. But we need to do things that are responsible. That's the only way that we have. And I think that's culture, you know, the culture of the companies that are able to take the limit always up together, you know, and the circular, I think, approach is amazing.
Right.
Because circular approaches start from design. You know, it starts with how you think, you know, how you make it, how you create it. And the new design and the new role of designer, we are going to have different, you know, moments of education for new designers. It's not just making, you know, a sketch or a color and just touch a fabric. It's to understand what are these materials, and you know, where they're coming from, how they're made, how they are transformed, and where are they're going, you know, after life. That's why for us at class, for example, is really important the cradle-to-cradle life cycles.
Right.
Because every material has to have a life cycle also at the end. So biological, going to the earth without damaging, you know, and to be nutrient for the earth, or technical, so recycling forever, basically, you know. And, you know, talking about the different materials, we are looking at, we do not have a library just to have a lot of materials, you know, the brands has fantastic research department that are far ahead than us, you know. But we want to look at special things all over the world in order to share with them what is going on and to inspire. Because sometimes designer, brands, but also, you know, materials producer are so focused on their reality of today, because that's what they have to do. And they do not have enough time even for what they need to do every day. In order to inspire and let them see that there are other things ongoing. And this is really important, so that we are looking at natural materials, organics, recycled. And for me, recycled is not a word that I love, because generally speaking, when you say recycle, people think second life
Right.
and less value.
Right.
You know, recycling is the technology, and there are so many different technologies to recycle, and some of them are not even sustainable. So, you know, we go back to the fact that we need to ask questions, you know, because without questions, you will never know.
No.
But we have also to change the way to communicate materials, because I heard today, it was a fantastic session for me today, you know, because I've been as well to many sustainability conferences, but the level of really skills is really high, and the interest for the material is really amazing. You know, you have to communicate also in a different way, because you know, we are not just looking at materials, we can measure them. You know, there are measurements to understand, you know, which kind of sustainability. For example, for asset class, when we start selecting these new things, we start from the company to analyze the company. Is the company that make a different product? It's not the product that has a certification that will change how the company is behaving.
Right.
So company first, the product with processes, packaging, transformation. And then we have also what I call the new generation of values, and are not so new because now it's really a lot of time, but that was not even there 6-7 years ago, like transparency, traceability, the use of water, the use of CO2, you know, animals' welfare, social, ethical. But without a company that believes and acts in a certain way, you can have all the certification that you want, but it's not going to be,
anything.
you know, responsible, because responsibility starts with them. And when you communicate it, you know, you need to be really authentic, but authentic using the measurement, because depending on the way that you want to look at, doesn't matter if it's organic, if it's natural, if it's transformed, or new generation of material that are, you know, we talk a little bit about biopolymers that are going to come in a very big way, and we'll have a lot of not surprises, because it's people that is working since 10 years. You know, you have ways to measure, because there are possibility to measure, you know, depending what you want to communicate. Do you want to communicate that you have used less water, that you have, you know, there is no CO2, no chemicals? You know, it doesn't matter if you do everything correct from the beginning, but at least be sincere about what you have done and tell it, but not just, okay, there are, you know, I'm eco-friendly, I'm green. We have a consumer, and that's why we are really, it's my really passion, the communication about responsibility, because when we started 12 years ago, there was market research at international level that was saying that, you know, consumer was prepared to pay up to 15% more for a sustainable, you know, outfit. Today, we have market research, even in Italy, done in Italy, so, you know, but worldwide, but also in Italy, where we have heard that, you know, consumer is not buying sustainability, and you know why? There are two main reasons. First, because the style is not so good, and we are in fashion, and I think we need, you know. Second, because they do not trust, you know, the sustainability mentions, because who is trusting them? We have heard all the day, you know, about what is not working. But you can read these as a negative thing. I read it as a fantastic business opportunity. You know, that is the win-win, because a lot of designers are prepared. We heard so many things today to do amazing job in style, and, you know, they need to better communicate in a simple, because it needs to be simple. We are not scientists, and, you know, but in a real way. So when you was talking about price, I think the price is the key point, because consumer cannot absorb everything. But I'm really pretty sure that the consumer will be so happy to hear that the things that you are going to do, you know, as G-Star Raw, will have a different impact on the skin, on material health, because it's something that is up in all the research about what you want, you know, in your next, is less chemicals, the detox campaign. So I'm not saying that the consumer is prepared to pay, but for sure, these are values that we need to communicate better.
And when you say measurements, are we talking about LCAs, life cycle
well,
assessments?
For us, the LCA, Higg Index, Cradle to Cradle, these are much more than certification, because it's an holistic way to look at things, because you cannot just judge. You know, organic is important, and it's really, you know, and recycle things as well. But it's just a part of the whole process.
Okay.
So it's really time to have and consider everything, especially when you are in a circular economy process,
Right.
where you have design, but you have smart innovation, you have a new way to communicate, you have new business model. This is the best moment, believe me, for all the creativity people that is here. You have an amazing scenario to look at. You know, you have seen all the list of materials that, she was just explaining.
Right.
And, when we started, we have just three, basically, so natural, synthetics, and artificial. So, it's just a question of to use the creativity in a different way, I think much better and much more, I think, motivating for a fantastic cause that is for the environment and for the human being.
We need to duplicate you like 100 times
Well,
and spread it
I need
around
a
the
voice at
world.
least.
All of you, of course.
No, but we can do it because there are people like Recicrom,
Yeah.
that are doing a lot of technology. And they're investing investing time and money.
Right.
And there are a lot of these people acting all over the world. So class will not be
The only-
reference point. No.
Right. Well,
of course, we are pushing that.
Yeah. Why not? Why not?
Well-
Class Gold certified.
Well,
Why not?
that's too much.
Tomorrow, co-signs to that, don't
no,
worry.
no.
So I don't leave you out, Ms. Pinar. You know very well, as I said earlier, that I'm very passionate about disrupting the supply chain. We work together in working to do that. Can you give us a glimpse into something new that Chalik is working on that disrupts the supply chain?
Yes, we have recently developed a system that's called a transparency monitoring system.
Okay.
It's based on our belief that we should more focus on measurable targets. So at the core of this business, this system, we have been installing monitoring devices to the machinery at our mill.
Okay.
So these devices can measure the consumption of energy, water, steam, and chemicals for each fabric we produce.
Okay.
By this means, we will be able to segment our fabrics as low, mid, high, or A, B, C, you name it.
Right.
With regards to the level of environmental impact they create, environmental damage they create. So also this method will enable us to provide our clients a transparent data.
Okay.
So it's a huge leap forward for transparency and
Right.
in our efforts to create more sustainable production line. Also, we can continuously monitor, analyze, and work to improve specific parts of the production line to increase overall performance.
Okay, so brands can essentially take advantage of that information, is what you're saying. So that's
Yes.
how it's really beneficial to a brand.
Yeah.
That's super important, obviously. But are there any limitations that you've experienced when it comes to this? I mean, it's new technology, so I'm
Yeah.
assuming maybe there's some bugs that you're working out, or other things that you're concerned about. Let's say.
Yeah, at the moment, we are not able to measure carbon emission instantly.
Okay.
But we can measure it by calculation
Okay.
and verify it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So slight limitations, but not really. I mean, it seems like a pretty
Little
robust
bit,
product, yeah. And do you have a team? Because we work together, but I'm not always in Melotia, let's say, for example. But are other teams that are just dedicated to this type of innovations that you're working on?
Yes, we have a team dedicated to responsible denim production solutions.
Okay.
And we have a R&D center. And there are more than 60 engineers working on sustainable innovations and on a full-time basis.
Right. And can you give us a hint on anything new that you're working on?
Yes, we have 2 new technologies.
Okay. All ears.
Of course, we have product innovations, but
Right.
these are the technologies with regards to the responsible denim production.
Right.
And one of them is D-Clear, which has
D-Clear, okay.
which has already been launched, so which is being applied at our mill. and the other one is called Laundryless.
Laundryless.
Yes.
Okay.
But that
Give
is,
us a bit of information about Laundryless.
okay, but that is very soon to be launched.
Okay. Okay.
So,
D
by the way,
Clear
this is
and
not the
Laundryless.
final name.
Okay, okay.
This is not
Oh,
the final
okay.
name because we haven't launched it yet.
Okay.
So we haven't finalized the name, but we can call it Laundryless here, so it makes sense to me.
Okay.
Maybe before giving any detail about the technology, I should talk about why we created this technology, because
Please.
there are a lot of concrete ways we are working hard to contribute to responsible fashion,
Okay.
both within our company and in the wider industry. In line with that perspective, we strive to create processes
Okay.
that minimize the environmental damage, also in the later stages of supply chain.
Okay.
So Laundryless stemmed from this belief.
Okay.
So with this technology, we will be able to provide fabrics which look already washed.
Beautiful.
Yes, and
That's really disruptive.
yes.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yes, and so that means rinse, enzyme, bleach wash look fabrics will be available at our mill. So that
No need to
means-
wash.
No need to wash. That means we can eliminate the washing process at the garment making site.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Congratulations. But I want to, before I end it, I want to also congratulate you because I understand that Çalık has just received the Nordic Eco Swan certification.
Yes, yes, we did.
How long ago was that?
It's very new. At the beginning of this month, we
Okay.
received. Yes.
Congratulations for that. Actually, that's all my questions. I think we're out of time. But
Okay.
at the end, I think, a show of hands, has anyone learned something they think they can take advantage of? I know I have. Well, amazing. Thank you for your time, guys. And yeah,
Thank you.
enjoy the rest of the day. And hopefully see you at the after party. Yeah?
Thanks.
Go. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you for being patient on this day that is a bit long, dense, intense, full of hopefully useful, meaningful information. We're going to have a session now that is a short video and a bit of a different pace. So this is from Dr. Sudeep Muthupalli Rao, who is a colleague of ours who now is sending remotely. He couldn't be physically here today, but he's sending basically his thoughts and presence into today remotely. So I'll just a small intro and then we'll play the video. Dr. Rao is a chemical engineer, chief scientist at Intrinsic Textiles, and co-developer of technology, a very, very exciting technology that's addressing a really, really core problem in the textile industry right now. He's worked extensively in coming from waste treatment, environmental cleanup, from the iron and steel industries, to cleaning nuclear waste in groundwater in Los Alamos in New Mexico. So he has a very kind of deep history in thinking about environmental consequences of industry. Became fascinated with biomimetic design and is now all about trying to establish kind of a balance between the synthetic technological world and the natural world from which it comes and hopefully to which it can return. So for the last 10 years, he's been very devoted to designing innovative materials for the circular economy, notably running the San Francisco office of EPEA, which is under the Dr. Michael Braungart, the co-founder of Cradle to Cradle Design Framework. So we have kind of a bit of a link there. And then, yeah, so this technology that they've developed is called Ciclo. And what it does is basically allow polyester to, once it goes out into the natural environment, to degrade at the same rates as natural materials like wool, cotton, and so they're at the later stages of final kind of pre-industrial testing, and it's very exciting development because this obviously addresses a really core problem about microfibers, about polyester plastic. It will end up in a landfill or the ocean. Basically, that's the final resting place, and this kind of addresses a little bit of the adding more of a natural cycle to it. So he will be. It's about a 7-minute video, so but very exciting, very interesting stuff. So I appreciate your patience. I'm going over here to press play.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this wonderful fomenting of a revolution and creating a new culture towards making our textiles and our fabrics, our clothes influenced by ancient cultures. My talk is on microbes and microfibers, biocycling textiles. I'll share a little bit of narrative anchored in time, and I will also share about cyclotextiles, the technology, how we were inspired by biomimetic design, and in terms of going forward, what this means for us and the opportunities and the challenges. So today is April 27th, 2019, 0 because we're thinking in a 10,000 year time scale. We do need to think about geological time scale because that's how much our impact is. In terms of learning from nature, nature has had about 4 billion years of R&D in designing new materials. And so we want to incorporate that ancient time that we can learn from there and design materials now and utilize them, and in such a way that we're able to have a positive footprint in that next 4 billion years, perhaps. And so in this time frame, when we see cathedrals burning, churches being bombed, and also mosques attacked, these are acute events, short-term trauma, maybe even long-term, but in a short period of time, we have a lot of intense attention called to things, and it jars our sensibility and our aesthetic. And what I'm hoping that we can also do is look at things over the long term, things that take place over long time scales, but they should also jar our sensibility just like some of these acute events happen. In terms of how we have arrived here, it helps to go back in time to the time of the Iron Age, where things rusted. We didn't have materials that lasted for a while. And as we learned to dope carbon and other metals, chromium, manganese, we created steels and we created stainless steels. So something that had a short, finite time frame we were able to extend their lifetime over long periods of time and stretch their life and make them refractory to the environment. So in other words, they would not interact with the environment in a way that they degraded. And so when we created rayons and we looked at silks and cottons and wool and all these materials, when we had a chance to make them artificially, make them synthetically in the last 100 years, we created fantastic architectures. But in some ways, when it comes to them interacting, that durability and tenacity and wicking and water repellency, all those are fantastic properties. But when those materials interact with the environment, there is an excess overcapacity in terms of performance. And so you have now microfibers that go from our laundry machines to the wastewater treatment plants into the oceans. And so that is, and once they're in the ocean, they are now have become such a huge threat, and they are actually contributing to, they are being ingested by animals, and eventually that plastics are actually sequesters of chemicals, and so that is a big known problem. Also, the other problem of textiles just ending up in permanent incarceration in our modern pyramids of 20th century, which is landfills. There is a way to introduce, through biomimetic design, take these materials and functionality, this synthetic materials, introduce life, introduce cultures, microbial cultures, and their capacity to work with materials that they have finessed over 4 billion years to bring about changes in the properties of these synthetic materials once they meet the environment. So that's what Cyclo technology is about. We worked in developing and designing a biophilic polymeric formulation, biophilic, something that nature can digest, nature can absorb, nature can incorporate. And so the beauty of this Cyclo textiles is that, and the technology is that during the use phase, these molecules are kind of analogous to the synthetic materials, so they align themselves. They work in conjunction with synthetic materials during the use. So what we expect and what we want in terms of technical performance, we don't have any compromise on that. But the minute that they face the environment, when they come into contact with moisture and the microbes, that those materials are, it's a kind of a corrosion process where microbes find the Cyclo molecules, start their colonies there, and once the colony grows large enough, then they can eat the surrounding synthetic materials. And so that corrosion kind of process is, can be applied for in the microfibers in the ocean, where rather than the microfibers being refractory, they actually are sacrificial in the sense that these microbes can digest them, and that carbon inside in this particular microfibers can get incorporated into the cell wall and into the biomass of these microbes. It's very important to remember we still need to do our recycling, we still need to do our reusing and recovering as much. That's what we are trying to do, is recovering what we sometimes refer to as rot. And we also have to do our share of refusing in terms of choosing not to use those materials. And so all those traditional systems of protecting our resources and doing our due diligence, our life cycle analysis is necessary. And so Cyclo Textiles allows us to bring about a change in the properties. We can find the degradation rates comparable for Cyclo Textiles to be like wool. And so in the same time frame as wool. One thing that we have done is we've tested our material to make sure, using the Oikotex textile standard, to ensure that our raw materials, we disclose all our internal, the complex formulation, to ensure that there's nothing harmful in terms of the person who's using it as well as for the environment. And so we passed the Oikotex Eco Passport standard. And similarly, we want to encourage downstream users to choose techniques like Cradle to Cradle certified, like Global Organic Textile Standard, GOTS, and Blue Sign, and conform to the ZDHC, Zero Discharge of Hazardous Chemicals, the guidelines of the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. So all these metrics that we have identified and that we've embraced are still applicable for Cyclo Textiles as well. And so I thank you for this opportunity and allowing the ancient cultures to change our materials and evolve our industrial metabolism to create a new kind of culture and appreciation of these materials and appreciating life. It's really important to foster life in whatever we do. So I thank you for this opportunity. Namaste.
Thank you, everyone. We have one final amazing presentation in a day full of amazing presentations. Can we have the lights back on over here? So, thank you, I think. One final presentation that is a conversation about how do we know it's well made. We've talked so many, first of all, let me say for 1 minute, it's so cool to me how disparate and diverse all of the conversations have been, and how many threads of a conversation of interest are continuing through them. And like I love, even Dr. Rao had prepared his video before, but touched on 3-4 major things that we had talked about already. So I love that stuff. So now the next conversation is going to be Céline Seman in conversation with Gary Bannigan, who's representing the Conscious Fashion Campaign. And Céline, of course, is the major hostess of this entire afternoon. So I'd like to welcome them up to the stage now for a fireside chat. If only we had a little fire. But we'll imagine that these chairs are the fire, maybe. I don't know.
Thank you.
Are these on?
Hello, hello.
Beautiful.
Is it on?
Thank you.
Okay, this is the final conversation. Thank you all so much for being so attentive. Thank you, Carrie. Hello.
Hi again. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So I put up the slides of the SDG. Are you guys familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals? A raise of hand if you are. Wow, this is beautiful. Okay, cool. So Carrie Bannigan here does many things. It's very difficult to describe what you do. And probably you're saturated with information, but stick with us because it's very important. So Carrie Bannigan works in collaboration and partnerships with the United Nations and with two projects in particular. One that's called the SDG Media Zone. Have you heard of the SDG Media Zone? Some of you? So the SDG Media Zone is essentially a sort of like a TV show, almost like you know, The View, almost, but for all things related to the Sustainable Development Goals. And the other project that Carrie also leads is the Conscious Fashion Campaign. And I wanted to start with, so the title of this panel is How Do We Know Things Are Well Made? And one of them is through certifications, right? It's like looking at the labels and someone saying, this is amazing, and then you feel amazing. And so this is how we know it's well made. But Carrie has a very innovative way to looking at it, and through the Conscious Fashion Campaign has done incredible work with trade shows and with brands in labeling and in certifying, unofficially certifying, but definitely helping communicate the kind of efforts brands are doing through the Sustainable Development Goals and adding those goals to the clothes. So tell us why you chose the word conscious instead of sustainable, for example.
First of all, thank you all for having me. Thank you for putting this all together. It's amazing to see where you went from LA, New York, United Nations, and now here in London. It's fantastic. When we were thinking about what we could do to really bridge the gap between the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the fashion industry, we had to really look at what was going on and what was happening in the market. And I think, you know, a lot of people have said today sustainability has become such a buzzword. Some people don't trust it anymore. Some people don't even know what it means. It's become so saturated. I still love sustainability because of what it means to me as a person and what I see the changes happening with the industry. But when you want to go then mainstream, because we have to start affecting and communicating with the masses, or we're never going to see the change that needs to happen on the horrific timelines that we're being told. Change needs to be implemented. So for Conscious, it's because that for me and the people involved, when we were looking at this project to launch, was it's about knowledge, awareness, mindfulness. And I think with that, sustainability is all encompassed and still comes within the conscious sector. Sustainability is very focused, in my eyes, on looking after the planet, making sure we avoid depletion of resources and so on. I don't have to describe to this crowd. But for Conscious, we wanted to also make sure we were being a lot more inclusive. And what does that mean? We should be looking to embrace all the changes people are making. You see the impact programs, the matching programs, people giving back to their communities. Are they all 100% sustainability at this time? Are they even 70%? No. But we're getting there and we're trying to get there. And so the Conscious Fashion Campaign is really trying to learn about what everybody is doing in the industry, and for people not to feel shamed or judged and be able to come forward and share the work that they are doing, because without collaborating, we're not going to reach the goal that we need to.
Absolutely. And so oftentimes when we work with brands ourselves through the Slow Factory and with the Bear Scout as our partner, we oftentimes feel that brands are like, we don't want to be sustainable. We don't want to say we're sustainable, or we don't want to, do any kinds of efforts that are going to be communicated because we don't want to be called out of greenwashing, or we don't want to be, sustainability means perfect almost, and they are very, it blocks people from engaging or from even trying something different. And so I think what you came up with the SDGs, with the Conscious Fashion Campaign, is very brilliant. Can you explain to us how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. We're still in new launch mode. We've spent the last 8 months in a lot of discovery and research. And our main goal, the Conscious Fashion campaign, looks to champion fashion brands that put impact at the forefront of their business. And specifically for us, that is aligning with the Sustainable Development Goals behind us. And so with that, we found that the main touch points of interest for us were retail and media. And with that being, you've got fashion brands that are launching with good in their DNA. It's wonderful to see these days that brands launch and giving back, doing well, and making sure their customers know what's going on, but they benefit from their product is becoming the norm. Slowly and surely, and it's wonderful to see because it was not like that 15 years ago in the industry. And you've also got the existing fashion houses that are looking to better their practices. What that means is different between each brand because they all have different goals and different things that they need to achieve and different demographics and customers. So for us, we saw a gap between how these fashion brands are then connecting with their consumer. And again, it comes back to very staggering statistics about how can we make change faster. And it does come back to consumers have a lot of power. But before the consumers have power, I think there's also sometimes very missing in the conversation the power that the retailers have and the power that media holds in our society. We look at the advertising world, we look at the magazines, the blogs, content on our social medias that does influence a lot of what is happening in the marketplace. And the same with retailers. We have our trusted, curated experience. When you go into your favorite store, you know that they have got what you want somewhere in there because it's an experience that you've been a loyal customer with for a long time. So the Conscious Fashion campaign has taken the approach of working with trade shows and stores themselves, as well as advertising industry and your traditional media to see how we can communicate better what is going on and to give businesses and brands a chance to show the good that they are doing. As you've seen all day on this stage today, whether in-person or video presentations, the industry is making huge strides. This used to be an industry that thrived on competition. What was the hottest thing coming out on the runway? Who was unveiling it first? Who could make sure that they showed that fabric first for that season? Now I think it's so exciting to work in the industry where you see pure collaboration, findings, insights, data sharing. It was discussed here earlier, and it's incredible. And so in order for this to push the needle forward and really make change, we have to give the industry more support. And I think there's a big responsibility on retailers and media to do that.
And you've really included the buyers in educating buyers. Buyers have also so much power. I know we talked about media has power, consumer has power, but buyers who choose and select the kind of aesthetics or styles or who effectively bridge the gap between brands and consumers and are able to introduce to consumers all the way and by educating them as well, you've offered them some very important tools in very simple ways just by working with the SDGs. Can you explain to us how the Conscious Fashion campaign went from an idea into physical product almost, because you kind of created this unofficial certification by yourself in a way. It is not a certification because the Sustainable Development Goals don't act as a certification, but because they're becoming more and more consumer friendly and like we've seen, who knows the SDGs, everybody raised their hands, you were able to kind of play with them a little bit like Legos and put them on garments in a way that when someone sees a garment with some of the SDGs on it, they're like, oh, this is good for my planet, or oh, this was done in a responsible process. Can you explain to us how you achieved that? And I know you've been into research, but you've executed it. You piloted the project. So tell us a bit how it went.
Yeah, and I'd say pilot is the key point because now we're working out and definitely taking big strides now to see what we did. The first step that we took was to actually work with the trade shows because, as you said, that's where the buyers are. We wanted to see the interest that they had. There are so many sustainable and impact brands at these trade shows now, but they don't necessarily always have the budget to be at the forefront or a big booth or anything like that. And so we went to trade shows, and I think they're still here. Pure London is one of our, they're here, is
Yay.
a fantastic trade show here in the UK, and I'm sure the audience is very familiar with them. but were one of our main key partners and one of the first believers in this project to step in the UK market with us. We were doing a lot already in the US. And the goal is, at the trade shows, was to create this pop-up experience, if you will, of a collaboration, bringing all the looks together of impact and sustainable and ethical brands that are on the show floor. But in this experience, it was a place where retailers could come and just learn more about each brand. And so while we are not, and we don't plan to be nor wish to be, a certification, there's already so many amazing things in the market, we use the tagging system actually as a path and platform for communication. And so when people are looking at this look that's been put together on a mannequin or a beauty product or accessory at the trade show floor, they, on the tag, can learn obviously the brand's name, their social, or the very crucial stuff these days, but information about what the brand is doing for good, and then on there, the goals that align with the brand, or the top goals that make sense for that brand. And it's so interesting that the retailers find it as a very simple and quick method. And then on there is also the booth number. So you're watching a retailer be very intrigued by a beautiful built installation, learning about what that product can do and is doing. And the reality is, as humans, we all have our touch point of what means something to us. So it could be whether the buyer is there representing and climate means something to them as a business, if it's about education and gender equality or life above water and underwater, it might mean something to them too personally. We all have our causes that strike a chord with us, whether it's through our personal stories, history, or whatever. And so we found that something we thought would just be almost a directional signage really sparked conversation between these buyers learning, and again, coming back to being conscious, that knowledge share and the awareness, and then going to speak to these brands and wanting to do business with them. And that's what it also comes back to, right? If we're in an industry that's valued at 2.4 trillion, wouldn't it just be fantastic to be able to shift the needle through the power of these buyers and them just moving a little bit more of their spend and their in-store budget to purchase products that are giving back? And I'm not saying we need to keep buying more, but retail is not going to stop anytime soon. So why not encourage stores to stock better so that their consumer can buy better?
That's brilliant. And so I know you started with like a lot of research. It was very much like a pilot project, like an experiment, right? It was an experiment. And so you were working hand in hand with brands, you know, you were yourself and your team getting to know more and more what the process was like to create the garments, what the ethics are behind the brand, and helping them translate their ethics and translate their efforts in the SDGs. Like some of them would just randomly pick maybe SDGs, and you would go and verify the process. How do you see this going in the next 3 years? How do you see yourself? Maybe is it possible to automate this process? And what are your thoughts to growing what you've started as a pilot to making it a lot more accessible, let's say, to more people? Because you have a super cool team, but then you need 100 more people to manage the industry. So how are you going to scale this?
It's a very interesting question, and if after people learn about this, they have answers and ideas, please come forward, because what started as an idea to be about communication has definitely become something that we are now working on day and night, because although we knew the industry needed this, we didn't know if the industry knew they needed this. And so what's been amazing is the support globally. And with that means the more success is going to be more hands on deck and learning more. We are looking at how do we automate this? What does this mean? And there's so many great models out there that we could look to replicate or learn from in the business sector. But I think we're still in that place of being very involved. And I think, you know, you've just asked me what I wake up with every morning, like, okay, now what? Right? Because again, for us, it's the partnerships and the collaborations are key. We are not looking to create anything new. We are looking to integrate with the power players already in the space, the trade shows, then the stores themselves. What can they communicate? And you talk about the consumers, and this was touched point earlier. There's all these certifications that are coming out. And it's amazing within the business sector and what we can do to achieve and strive as brands and designers and manufacturers and companies. But has that yet translated in communication to the consumer? I don't think yet, and I think of my mum, when she just goes shopping as your average consumer into a store, she might not know what these things mean, the letter for being a B Corp, or, you know, anything, to be
Like a
honest.
green label or-
Yeah, they're just not there yet. And so we are very focused on helping brands grow via the support of retailers, the buyers, as you say, and then the media. And I think the reality, when you comment about we translate the SDGs and the work that brands are doing, the reality is so many brands are already doing good. It's just the norm within their business. They just might not yet have connected it with the SDGs or know about this conversation that's going on.
And so maybe we have a few moments to open up the floor. This is our last panel. I would love for you all to, Colin, if you can put the slide back, to follow the Conscious Fashion campaign, see where they're at coming next. If you have ideas on how to contribute in their automation and growth, the Conscious Fashion campaign, and Carrie Bannigan from the United Nations. This has been such an important day. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of it. Thank you, Carrie, for the important work that you do and for just being overall a champ in sustainability and consciousness and so on. Thank you to all the speakers that came today. This is a little bit like last panel, closing panel. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. We'll get you a mic. Carrie and I had the opportunity to collaborate together on many occasions, and one of them was, well, it's thanks to Carrie Bannigan that we were invited to the United Nations to do a first study hall there on February 1st, and it was a great success. We loved it very much, so much so that we're going to be there every year.
We're going to make it annual.
Yes, we're going to make it annual. We're very excited. We're very, very excited for this opportunity. So the next study hall at the UN is on January 31st in New York. So if you want to come, please do. In between now and then, we have a study hall on August 22nd in San Francisco, and the theme is going to be sustainability and technology, and how is technology, some of it is empowering the sustainable or conscious or eco and social justice movement, and how are some of the technologies, an opportunity, just like Juicy said, when you talk about problems, it's definitely an opportunity. So some technologies like e-waste and sourcings, the sourcing of precious metal through e-waste and so on. And of course, we're going to be discussing the Sustainable Development Goals, and we will be working with Carrie more closely, hopefully, in this Conscious Fashion campaign and bringing awareness to through people, buyers, and the entire industry. Did you want to add anything that I forgot about all the work that we did, that we do separately together, the Conscious Fashion campaign, the United Nations?
All right, well, I know people have been taking in so much today. I think everyone's ready for the after party, I'm sure. But I think one thing I just wanted to actually say a big thank you to you, just bringing together and convening all these change makers, having the courage to now take it global. I think it's fantastic. And just a huge round of applause to you and your team. And I can't wait to keep collaborating and supporting your work.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you to Central St. Martin's for trusting me in this space and trusting my team. Thank you to Fashion Revolution. I love you so much, guys. Thank you to Adidas and G-Star, YouTube, Chalik Denim for trusting us, for empowering us, and for Just Water for hydrating us. And thank you to the United Nations for trusting me. Thank you to MIT Media Lab who trusted me in the beginning and kind of kickstart this amazing project. Can you put it on the slide of the after party? I would love to extend the invitation to all. It starts at 7:30 and it's at the Adidas store in Spitalfields, in Shoreditch. I can't pronounce that. But the address is right here, Spitalfields. And we're going to have music by the BBZ GJ crew. And thank you so much for your patience. It's been an honor to come to London and to host you all. Next time I'm going to hire a host because I'm exhausted. But, but thank you all. And if you have any questions, now is your chance. If not, please, thank you and goodbye. Without you, this would not be possible.
The last note, keep your pin The pin that you have that says Study Hall, you're going to show that to the people at the door of the Adidas store in Shoreditch, Spitalfields, because if not, they won't let you in, no matter how amazing you are. So please bring this pin with you. And we'll see you there at 7:30.
You're tired. It's okay.
But thank you very much for
Of
everything.
course. Thank you, Pinar. You liked it? Oh, you guys need to meet because she's incredible. Oh, yes, yes.
This is
Pinar, she.
Yes, yes. This is real me. It wasn't really.
I need to go change too, but you guys need to meet and talk. Carrie is championing incredible innovations from the United Nations, including this conscious fashion campaign, and Pinar runs all PR for Chalik Denim, and Chalik Denim is incredible at doing like really cool stuff, innovation, circular. No, but exchange cards or something, or I'll put you in touch, don't worry.
On email. All right. Okay, let's do it.
Yes, you two should also talk. Juicy runs.
We will talk soon. I saw you. I was listening to you. I was like, your voice is gonna go, but don't stop talking. No, I can't.
This is great. Hi.
She was waiting first.
I just really wanted to introduce myself because I've been emailing with Dominic. I'm Abby and I work at HSBC right now.
You are?
Yes.
I saw your email go through, but I
Yeah.
didn't want to intervene. I thought you were talking
I
with
saw you in
her.
the bathroom and I was like, oh, I don't want
Oh,
to bother you.
I'm sorry. I was like rushing to pee.
No, it's fine. I was like, should I say something or not? But I just wanted to introduce myself and
I have your email because she put us in touch, but I didn't want to intervene because I felt it was her project. So
Yeah. Well, I'd love to talk to you about a couple different things I'm doing because I'm working with them, but I'm doing some other stuff. And it sounded like a lot of what I specialize in is reframing around conscious content and conscious slow storytelling, things like that. So I just wondered if there's some synergies around a lot of the work I do.
Are you based in New York?
No, I'm
No.
here.
Oh.
I'm back and forth.
you're
So
HSBC here.
I'm HSBC here, but it's like I'm consulting for them.
Oh, got
but
it.
I
And
also
can you
run
help
my
us with
own
funding?
lab. Yeah.
Okay.
So the New York team.
So especially for the one at the UN would be
So the one
goal.
at the UN, because the New York team works directly, actually, I think with her, and then they're doing UNGA this year.
Okay.
They're doing a lot of stuff in September. And they're working with the Albright as well.
Tab, send me an email just to like unrelated to the thread with Dominique.
Yeah, a separate one. Yeah, is that all right? Cool.
Can you start to include
Yeah.
in 2 minutes? We need you over
Yes.
on smoke.
I'm so glad that's who I am.